Catholic theologian St. Thomas Aquinas wrote that to those with faith, no explanation is necessary. To those without faith, no explanation is possible. What then of those of us who don't fall neatly into that binary dichotomy, having faith or lacking it? What then of those of us who waver? And our poet today says that our fate is to be gnawed at by a tooth that will not let up. My name is Chronos, and you're listening to Poetic Parallels number 7. Poetic Parallels is a weekly mini podcast featuring original poetry, original music, as well as a discussion of how that poetry, how that music relates to an established poet. And today's established poet is none other than the American poet Emily Dickinson. Let's get into it. This World Is Not Conclusion by Emily Dickinson. This world is not conclusion. A species stands beyond, invisible as music, but positive as sound. It beckons and it baffles. Philosophy, don't know. And through a riddle at the last, sagacity must go. To guess it puzzles scholars. To gain it, men have borne contempt of generations and crucifixion shown. Faith slips and laughs and rallies, blushes if any see, plucks at a twig of evidence and asks vain the way. Much gesture from the pulpit, strong hallelujahs roll. Narcotics cannot still the tooth that nibbles at the soul. All right, so for my contribution, I have an acoustic song called Your Spirit Will Come to Know. We're going to look at the lyrics in relation to Dickinson's poem, and I hope you enjoy the song.
Poison gold, and we'll do just as we're told, not knowing which is which, not knowing how to be like the monk in his cave, not like the king in his grave. Be in the world but don't play its game. Be in love but don't feel no pain. All are thinking, what has it done but build a prison of zeros and ones? The few dream of becoming God, the many dream of becoming the few. I sing the song of acceptance and peace. I sing with echoes in all hollow beliefs. You on the right, don't you know that there's nothing left? We stay blinded by the eyes, deafened by the ears, broken by the heart, confused by the brain. All things fade, all things grow. Desire your truth will days will show. All things fade, all things grow. Your spirit will come to know.
Okay, so what's the central idea between this poem by Emily Dickinson, This World Is Not Conclusion, and my song, Your Spirit Will Come to Know? Dickinson highlights the cumulative uncertainty and pain of wavering faith. So it's something that builds up over time. That gnawing tooth doesn't take your arm off in the same way that a shark would. Instead, it cumulatively bites at you, gnaws at you, day by day, week by week, month by month, and so forth and so on. She says that cumulative uncertainty and pain, that's something that the faithful has to deal with. And my song, as contrast, says that no, personal knowledge of spiritual matters is possible. It's possible through asceticism and creative practice. Now, when I contrast my song with Dickinson's poem, I'm not saying that my song is right. I'm using it as a foil, if you will. So let's take a look at Dickinson's poem. Right at the outset, she says, "This world is not conclusion," with a period. So she's making a statement. To Dickinson, periods and dashes are of serious importance. A period indicates certainty. She's making a statement. Now notice that's the only period throughout this poem. Everything else she uses dashes. And dashes to Dickinson represent an openness to possibility, an exhortation to the reader to fill in the blanks. So remember, this poem is all about uncertainty. So she talks about how this certainty that this world is not conclusion, it's invisible like music, but positive as sound. So just as I can't reach out and grasp a symphony by Beethoven, it can seriously move me and change my life, but I can't reach out and grasp it. So she's saying that this certainty that she has is uncertain because, like music, it's invisible, even though it's positive as sound. She also writes that death is a riddle that even the wisest man has to go through. Those who bear the contempt of generations, so for example, the Christians who were sent to the lions in Rome, to Christ himself facing the crucifixion, all of that still involves going through a riddle. And I think this is a really powerful declaration of uncertainty that she says that even Christ himself has to go through the riddle. So she talks about this extreme faith, and then she talks about faith slipping, a personification of faith. Faith is something that can slip. It's something that can laugh. It's something that can blush. So if you as a faithful person are asked a question that you don't have an instant response to, maybe your faith will blush with embarrassment. Blush, am I found out? Am I hollow? Am I built on nothing more than habit and lies? And she says that faith asks a vane the way. So a vane, the rooster on your roof with the arrows pointing in which direction the wind is blowing. Faith looks to the wind, which also is invisible, like music. So she's tying it back to that theme of invisibility. Now, here we get to the climax. Much gesture from the pulpit. Strong hallelujahs roll. So this preacher gesturing from the pulpit with strong hallelujahs. And she says, these narcotics, these hallelujahs, this so-called certainty that's supposed to be transmitted to you as a member of the church, These narcotics cannot still the tooth that nibbles at the soul. So, narcotics, drawing back to the famous quote from Marx, religion is the opium of the masses. All of that certainty that's supposed to be imparted to you, all of that certainty you should hear as a member of the elect, it cannot still the tooth that nibbles at the soul. So Dickinson has written about religious uncertainty in the poem we've discussed. She's also written about uncertainty when it comes to identity. And in my song, Your Spirit Will Come to Know, identity plays a key role. So what does Dickinson have to say about identity in this poem? It's called I'm Nobody, Who Are You? And it reads, I'm nobody, who are you? Are you nobody too? Then there's a pair of us. Don't tell. They'd advertise, you know. How dreary to be somebody. How public, like a frog, to tell one's name the livelong June to an admiring bog. So here she's saying there's freedom in anonymity. There's freedom in being a recluse, which in the latter part of her life, to varying degrees, she withdrew. And she's saying, oh, I'm going to tell my name to an admiring bog, like a frog that croaks in this ugly croak. Here I am, and the rest of the bog with all its mosquitoes and all of its pond scum and all of its critters scuttling about. I'm going to declare my name. I don't need to do that, says Dickinson. I know who I am. I'm nobody. And that's really a powerful declaration against the society she was in. I don't want to fit into your society, she's saying. I don't need to be like that frog croaking, this is who I am. So this defiance that she shows when it comes to her identity, this defiance links nicely with my song, Your Spirit Will Come to Know. It's a defiant song, but it's not defiant in the way you might expect with, like the pastor, much gesticulation, many heavy hallelujahs rolling from the pulpit. Instead, I talk about the need, at least for myself, to enter a spiritual cave like a monk. So I don't live in a cave. Sometimes I wish that I lived in a cave, but I don't. And that's probably for the better. But spiritually, you have to enter into a cave of your own to be comfortable with your individuality, to be comfortable with the world loving you or the world hating you. You know, people can have all the success in the world, but if they don't love themselves, if they don't respect themselves at least, maybe you can't love yourself because that's a hard thing to do, but you can at least try to respect yourself. If you don't have that, it doesn't matter. That narcotic won't still the gnawing of the tooth. So at the end of the song, I ask, must we remain confused by the brain? And I think that spiritual matters are very simple if they're decided upon by the individual. If you're looking elsewhere, like Dickinson is in her poem, This World Is Not Conclusion, if you're looking to that pastor flailing his arms and dispensing narcotics, you're not going to find a substantive answer. It needs to be something that comes from you. You need to, as Nietzsche said, define your own values. God is dead and we have killed him. What does that mean? Have we actually murdered God as an entity? No. We have killed God through science. We have killed God through reason and the Enlightenment. And we can no longer depend on him to structure our societies, our lives, and our worldviews. So at the end, I sing that all things fade and all things grow. So this is an Eastern kind of philosophical, religious idea that, like the flower, it comes into being, it wilts, and it passes. But the same particles that make up that flower reintegrate into the ecosystem, and there's a kind of longevity, a kind of permanence in impermanence. So to conclude, this song to me is an expression of the kind of certainty that I have. It's a certainty that can't be nailed down, just like Dickinson writes. It's invisible like music, but positive as sound. For me, this song is my certainty. I sing the song of acceptance and peace. I accept myself, as hard as that can be. I make an effort to accept myself, and through acceptance of the self, I have peace. Now, that doesn't mean I accept everything about myself or that I accept everything about the world. There are many things about the world that I vehemently oppose, but I accept myself. I accept what I can do, and all I can do as a humble musician and poet is give you these songs, give you these poems, and that to me gives me certainty. All right, so if you were looking for answers, you probably didn't find them here because my answers are not your answers, that book's answers are not your answers, or perhaps they are your answers. It's up to you to decide. So this podcast was all about certainty and uncertainty, and I invite you take the step towards certainty in that spiritual cave, in that self-acceptance and readiness to either be loved or hated by the world. Okay, so in our next Poetic Parallels, number 8, we're going to be looking at the American poet Ezra Pound. I'll see you next time, and so long.